forward. Here on the right stand we have our panelists, and you all listen to what Dr. Jitendra Singh had to say. Let me start with Dr. Amar Patnaik. Do you agree, disagree? What's your thought on the budget?
Disagree with what?
No, with the point of view of the government that they are looking at inclusive growth. Or do you believe this budget will help achieve the aspirations of all of us collectively as a country?
So the point is, I think when everybody thought that it would be a very conservative budget, and the finance minister would probably cow down before the naysayers, I think this budget has been very bold to that extent, and it gives a policy direction over a longer term, medium and a longer term, how the growth, how the India would look like in terms of infrastructure, in terms of health, in terms of education. There is no denying the fact that this policy direction has come, and that has reassured not only the markets, it has reassured the investors, it has reassured the entrepreneur, it has reassured the middle class, everybody. So I think from that perspective, the budget has been great in terms of carrying out those reforms which were long overdue during the period of the pandemic, and now of course it has been carried forward. My only worry I would come to that, is that let's not be happy about it. The WHO says that the expenditure on public health should be about 3% of GDP. We have now reached about 1.8 or 2%. So the finance minister has said that money would probably not be a constraint. But for the first time we realize that at a block level things have to be done, and this is being done. I am very happy about it being a public health consultant. I am also, but then my worry is this, that while the pronouncements has been to this extent, the allocations for this year itself, if you look at agriculture and allied activities, the budget estimates in 2020-21 was 1,54,775 crores. This year it is 1,48,000. It's a decrease. If you look at the national education plan, it's again a decrease by about 6.3%. If you look at the Pradhan Mantri Gram, MGNREGS, it is again, just almost about the same thing. So I have a feeling that the entrepreneurial thing, the entrepreneurial address would probably be done very well here. The middle class should be happy. The growth should take off by an investment-oriented approach. But I'm worried about the rural economy.
Right.
I'm worried about the transfer to the states, because the transfer to the states is decreasing by about 15% compared to the budget estimates in 2020-21.
Right.
So and you would realize that it is the states who have to implement agriculture, it is the states who have to implement health, it is the states who have to implement the education thing, and their space is very limited.
Right.
I have a feeling that if the finance minister could probably reconsider some of those things to ensure that the states become real partners in this growth process, it would actually happen. The implementation will happen, the monetization of assets will happen, the capex will happen, and that is what would be my request to the finance minister.
Jay, okay, I'll allow the BJP a rebuttal, so Nupur Sharma, and then I'll bring in Dr. Hiranandani and also Kanchan Gupta. Yeah.
Good evening, Anand, and to fellow panelists and also to your viewers. Well, actually, no, not really. I don't think we should limit our worldview of understanding the budget this year to percentages of GDP, because try and understand that this is the year where we are functioning on a contracted GDP. You need to also understand that the economies world over have contracted. It's not just India. We are functioning in a pandemic here. And we're talking about the first budget after the pandemic. A first of its kind, never seen before, never experienced before by any living being in this world. Now, having said that, I'm really take the question as to what do the states get. Well, the 15th Finance Commission's recommendations have been accepted, and the minister has increased the ceiling for state borrowing to 4% from 3%, which was allowed earlier, only 3%, and with the facility to allow to allow additional 0.5 conditional borrowing. And that actually also entails that from the divisible pool of taxes collected, the state's share is now increased to 41%. Never before. 41% of the divisible pool of taxes. When you speak about particularly the capex,
it was there, 41 was there before.
There was a 34.5.
14th Finance Commission was 41.
So I'm talking about 15 Finance Commission. Please allow me to finish. When you speak about particularly of the capex, we've seen a 34.5% increase in capital expenditure allocation, and out of which 2 lakh crore, out of 5.54 lakh crore, 2 lakh crore will specifically go to states. And I'm not even talking about the various infrastructure development programs that she's announced, be it roadways, be it railways, be it metro rails, and so on and so forth. I'm not even going to get into health infrastructure. I'm not even going to get into the educational infrastructure. When she speaks about upgrading 50,000 schools, 750 Eklavya schools, another 100 Sainik schools, it's going to be, of course, divided all over the state.
There again, out of about, if my number serves me right, as far as education is concerned, 6 lakh schools, if my memory is correct, and only 15,000 is the focus right now, so it's not enough. And also metro and rail and all of that, Cuttack and Bhubaneswar are not getting allocations right now. So the allocations are going to Chennai, and the focus is on Bengal and in Kerala. So that's the political argument that's coming in. For me, as a citizen of this country, any state, any city that gets infrastructure money, well enough, because let everybody, because it's got to be collective growth. I've got limited time, so I'm going to ration the time, Nupur Sharma. Please hold on. Let me go across to Niranjan Hiranandani, Kanchan Gupta ji, and also Professor Amyatosh one by one. Your reactions, Dr. Hiranandani, on the budget, because you also are wearing multiple hats as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's heading ASSOCHAM, and of course as a doctor, and you have the Hiranandani Hospital. So please, your thoughts, sir. President naredco also, yeah.
I think the finance minister has done a wonderful budget. I never expected the kind of investment. When I heard the first part of the budget in terms of aggressive investments into various sectors, I was very afraid that she would really refer to additional taxes. The very fact that she focused on disinvestment, she focused on additional borrowing and worked on deficit financing in the short run and a balanced deficit situation over a period of years, I think she has done a miracle and a balancing act which was almost impossible. Having said this, I agree that there are segments where I think she could have done more. So obviously, Dil Mange more, and we really needed so many things which are there. For example, let's take the hospitality sector or the tourism sector or these sectors which are actually burning very badly. People are unemployed. A part of the MSME sector, I think that's in great difficulty. So we would have wanted certain things in each of these sectors. In housing, I think the affordable housing sector has really received a good amount as far as that is concerned. But what about the people like you and me, various other people, the middle class, the upper middle class? We expected something more in that segment also. So what we are saying is that I think the finance minister has been able to do a great budget. I really am happy about the investment focus of the government. We've been really pushing that from all the associations, ASSOCHAM included, that you must multiply the investments into roads, ports, health and other things and sectors, including pharmacy and other matters in terms of to create a different type of thing. That part has definitely happened. Yes, it could have been more. Of course, I can say that they should have done much more. But on the whole, if you look at it, I think it's a good budget and दिल मांगे more.
सर पिछले साल का जो 3 लाख करोड़ का डेफिसिट है वो भी तो एब्जॉर्ब करना है. So the point is that you have to spend, but you have to spend. A government which has been very fiscally prudent has been blamed for being overtly conservative. Coming out and opening its pockets and saying we're going to do it over the next 4 or 5 years till we stabilize around 4.5% of the GDP is something which is encouraging. So is bar some sectors have got some focus. Perhaps next year more sectors will get focused and little by little we'll have to do it. But has the ball been set rolling, Kanchanji? Has it been that the government has, looked at possible triggers which will create the kind of jobs that we need, which will create the kind of spending that we need and the demand that we need?
Yeah, there is no doubt about that. I had earlier on your channel described this budget as a infrastructure-rich budget. And the main focus is on creating both physical infrastructure and health infrastructure. You see, you have to realize that when capex goes up, there is attendant economic activity, and if you are spending, if government is spending so much on infrastructure, the creation of jobs is assured. And that is one of the primary reasons why infrastructure has got such a big push this time, along with the setting up of the development fund and also the special funding of renewable energy, solar energy. So these are the things which are going to give a huge impetus to the economy.
Right.
There was some mention over here about the states and the share of the states. The share of the states remains constant as per the 15th Finance Commission at 41%. That's the vertical.
Right.
Now, I think India has to, just like this budget has done something amazing. It has for the first time told the people of this country the actual amount of money which is spent on MSP, on buying crops.
Yes.
It has also explained how FCI is funded. And by stopping FCI from using savings to fund its buying spree, that's a huge step forward. The states have to realize that when health is a state subject, the states have also to step up to the plate. They can't just be dependent on central funds for the health sector. The states have to realize that if education, they have to step up to the plate too. So there has to be a matching effort. Just to keep on saying that the center is not giving sufficiently, I don't think that's much of a excuse. Just a last point that I would like to make. I mean, if you look at the political perception that has driven this budget, at the core of it, if you look at the budget, I think this is the least povertarian budget in recent times. We are not focusing on perpetuating poverty or pandering to poverty. We are focusing on creating jobs. We are focusing on empowerment, and and India is at last waking up to the fact that there's more to India than just the dominant states.
Correct.
You discussed a lot about the Northeast. When is the last time a budget actually spoke about Ladakh? I mean, these are the things which you should look at.
Yes.
To that extent, I think it's a great budget. It's the best the government could have done in the given circumstances. The situation demanded that the government should be adventurous. The government has been sufficiently adventurous. There will be a fiscal deficit on account of this. But then again, I think it's for the first time the government has decided that it should go ahead and let the fiscal deficit remain for the next few years and drag the economy out of the morass of COVID-19.
Well, and if Tamil Nadu can have a seaweed, focus, why not Odisha? It's on the same side of the Bay of Bengal, and why not other groups? Dr. Patnaik, coming across to you, there are ideas and potential. I just have to go across to two more speakers, and we'll have Mohandas Pai also joining us for a quick conversation. The man with his ear to the ground, within earshot, Abhijit Majumdar. Before I come to you, Professor Amiyatosh, your thoughts, sir?
Anand, absolutely. Anand, I'm really excited about this budget. You also have this temptation in these budgets to go for short-term fixes that looks very attractive in the short run, and in the process you have limited amount of money. After all, you are doing budgeting. You leave the long-term issues at bay. Now, the fundamental thing that I like about this budget, this is setting India on a course for a decade-long growth. And why do I say that? I say that for two fundamental reasons. And one, your panelists have already talked about. Investment in infrastructure, that's a long-term multiplier effect, and generations to come will benefit from that. But the other issue, and we have to go back a little bit in time to talk about that, and that is about the financial sector reform. If you look at, a lot of commentators have talked about pre-COVID, we were not growing at a fast pace. Why? We had our banks sitting on piles of non-performing assets. for lending decisions they made way back in 2007, 2008, 2009.
Correct.
And the forbearance policies that followed after that. So that is the structural reform that I'm most excited about in this budget. And what do I mean by that? Cleaning up, making serious attempts to clean up NPA, bad bank and good bank. So that will help. Starting this new DFI, I think, is a fundamental thing. You cannot have infrastructure without thinking about financing that will fund that infrastructure. And one more point on that is this privatization of PSBs. It's one thing to get money, and which is the most obvious thing that you'll get money. But there's a fundamental thing that is ailing our financial sector, which is poor governance and a lot of incentive problems. When you privatize a poorly performing public sector bank, it sends a message, a credible message to the world financial markets that we are serious to fix our credit flow problem. I often tell my students that credit flow is like blood flow. Credit flow to economy is blood flow to human beings.
Right. Very well said.
And we need to unclog that artery. And we have done that. I'm really hopeful that implementation will follow through. We do that, we'll have tremendous economic growth. The investments will follow. And all the points that were made about infrastructure and healthcare, of course, fantastic budget. I give them very high points.
But rather than brushing it under the carpet, they've just taken the carpet off, cleaned the floor and also brushed the carpet. That's what they've done and said we're transparent. भाई इतना है, यहाँ है, इस हमाम में हम लोग इतने नंगे हैं, आगे इतनी मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी, तभी ये बचेगा. Because this is a calculated risk that's been taken, 9.8% deficit and you're looking at 11.5% growth and the next year again 6.8%. You're walking a tightrope. But the fact is, it's self-confidence. It's not being bullish, it's not being conservative, it's just being confident. Abhijit Majumdar?
If I may add one point to that, Anand, the last point the point that just you made, that this budget is really a step forward for transparent accounting books for India. And why is it important? Because we are going to be tapping bond markets. To fund all these investments, you need to tap bond markets. When we go to the bond markets, you need two things. Credit rating and a trust in your numbers.
Transparency.
So I'm so excited. Transparency.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what Prime Minister also spoke about. Abhijit.
Yes, sir.
Your thoughts?
No, I think given the very little elbow room that the government had this time after the pandemic hit, I think this is the best budget it could have produced. And also remember that the government is facing really, I think, the toughest year of state elections this year with Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Bengal, Assam, all four. So I think this is as exquisite balance that it could have struck between politics and economy. And by that, I look at it from this way. Domestically, there is a political consideration, the election. So it had to balance that domestic election consideration with, reviving the economy, building on the, recovery, signs of recovery that we are seeing, and spurting growth, which, it is done with the infrastructure push, etc., etc. The other thing, internationally, in international politics, it is faced with an extremely hostile China. India has to be Atmanirbhar. We are extremely dependent on several aspects, goods, services, etc. coming from China. This is the time, this is the time after COVID when China has been discredited around the world, and we are looking at a lot of businesses shifting from China to India if we play it right. This was also a time to focus on that Atmanirbhar thing. I think the government has done in both cases. It has done well. Also, I agree with Kanchan that this is the least povertarian budget in a long time by the government. I mean, we were all. I think to an extent the happiness and satisfaction for a large section of business
Right.
stems from the fact that it was the government had set itself really problematic standards in constantly raising cess and there is a this is like a cess nationalism.
Founder of Earshot.in, you must be a little relieved that you're getting a 2-year tax holiday as a startup. But I'll speak it like we're getting Mohandas Pai. So Padma Shri awardee and of course Chairman RN Capital, Mohandas Pai is with us. Sir, thank you very, very much. Quick question to you. Your domain, health and education. Your thoughts, is this budget doing justice?